Welcome to Window on Wilmington. I'm Cherish McMillan, sitting in for Shannon Harris. Today on the show, we'll learn about Bahai's Junior Youth Spiritual Empowerment Program. We'll find out what the Coalition of 100 Black Women is up to. We'll hear from the Office of Animal Welfare, State Office of Animal Welfare, and also the Division of Child Support's Delaware Fatherhood Program. But first, it's back to school time, and AAA Mid-Atlantic wants to make sure that you are safe out on the road. And here with some tips is AAA's Kathleen Miller. Welcome to the show, Kathleen.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, I know you have some tips for our motorists on the road as our kiddies head back to school.
That's true, and though lots of folks at home are out buying new school clothes and school supplies, some people might think, well, back to school doesn't apply to me. I'm not a student. I don't have kids in the school system. But what they have to realize is whether you're a driver, a pedestrian, or a bicyclist, you are sharing the road with kids going back and forth to school and also school buses. So back to school time means as much to you as it does to the kids and parents sending kids back to school.
So what should motorists do to make sure that they are watching out for students specifically?
Well, during this time of year, AAA Mid-Atlantic and the Mid-Atlantic Foundation for Safety and Education has a campaign, and it's Schools Open, Drive Carefully. That's what you need to remember. And as far as motorists are concerned, one important thing to remember is once school gets back into session, you need to adjust your commute time. This is going to save you some stress. You know, you don't want your commute to be even more stressful. So build in maybe 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, because chances are you're going to be on the road with school buses who are going to be dropping off and picking up kids. If you're in a residential area or near a school zone, you're going to see school crossing guards crossing kids. They're going to have you stopped. So you definitely want to build some time in.
Wow, I can actually identify with that. I know that on my way to work, when school starts, the road gets a little more crowded. I have to wake up a little bit earlier because I have to be mindful that buses and things will be on the road on my way to work.
Well, that's true, and we can't stress enough that it's safety first. Please, you have to remember to stop for school buses. We know you're in a hurry. We know you want to get to where you're going, but when you see the yellow flashing lights, be prepared to stop. When the red lights come on, the stop sign comes out, and the arm of the school bus comes out, that means the school bus is stopped, either kids are getting on or getting off. And one important thing to remember is when the school bus stops, it's not always the case that kids are going to get off the bus and step onto the sidewalk closest to the bus. They might come around the front and cross the street. So we can't stress enough that you always, always need to stop for the school bus.
Now, I know that some people get a little confused as to if they need to stop if the school bus is in front of them or if they're on the other side of the road. Are people supposed to stop on both sides of the road when the stop sign comes out for the school bus, or?
I think that's always the best practice. And, you know, I've talked to people quite a bit about this, and they, you know, a lot of them complain, people honk at me when I stop, but don't you want to take the safest, you know, the safest route possible? As soon as you see the yellow lights, just be prepared to stop. And, you know, think about any which way those kids are going to be able to get to whatever side of the street they need to get to. So just stop. When you see the red lights, please just stop.
Okay, so no matter where we are, just stop.
Just
when the stop
be
sign
safe.
comes, just stop.
Just be safe about it.
Okay, so tell me some tips for parents that have children going to school. How can they make sure that their children arrive to school safe and come back home safe on the road?
Talk to your children about crossing at a crosswalk. That's what they're there for. And I think sometimes kids, you know, they can't judge how fast a car is going, and they can't judge how far away that car is. So they want to get across the street as quickly as possible, and they just dart out. So maybe as a parent, you want to take your child on the walk that they'll take either to the bus stop or to school. Walk it with them and teach them how to cross, looking both ways and using the crosswalk. Try to, drill it into them. Do not cross in the middle of the street. Do not stand between two parked cars. Imagine if you're a motorist and if you've got a small child, they're hard to see. Okay. So always cross in the crosswalk. And when you're walking either to the bus stop or to school, use the sidewalk. That's the safest way to go. You also want to figure out if your child is riding the bike to school. Check the bike over. Make sure that everything's working properly, and wear a helmet. Stress to them that they need to wear a helmet. And as an adult, if you're a bike rider, make sure you wear a helmet, because the kids are going to learn from example.
You mentioned that you were collecting some school supplies before we got on air today. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. AAA Mid-Atlantic, the corporate citizenship team, is coordinating collection of school supplies. So, for instance, at our headquarters down here on the riverfront, we're collecting school supplies for Lewis Elementary, which is right here in Wilmington. So between now and September 15th, you can drop off any new and unused school supplies to our retail location, and we're going to drop those off at Lewis. And I think one of the things that schools are asking for most, composition books. Well, pencils and folders. Those are really the need for some of the schools that we've collected for.
I will say that is a little bit surprising, because a lot of schools try to embrace technology, and so the fact that composition books are still a need for students in school is interesting in news. But before, you mentioned that everyone needs to make sure that they're wearing helmets when they travel. So how can students that walk to school be safe in their travel walking to school, aside from making sure that they are not standing in between cars? What other things can they do to make sure that they're safe on their way to school on foot?
Well, they always want to make sure, and this is true for everybody, no matter what you're doing, don't text and walk. Take the earbuds out, because if you're in your zone, you're not going to hear a car honking. You're not going to hear someone yelling for you to move over. That goes for everybody. Do not step into the street while you've got your head down and the phone in front of you. That's one of the biggest safety tips we can give, especially with the fact that most kids will have a cell phone or a video game, and that might be what they're doing while they're walking.
How many incidents have you heard of where accidents were caused because of walking while texting, I guess I'll call it?
Well, I don't have any numbers off the top of my head, but if you remember Pokemon Go?
Yes.
Okay. There were plenty of news stories while people were walking around, trying to catch whatever it was they were trying to catch. And but they're stepping into the street.
Yeah.
They're not paying attention to what their goal was. They were too focused on this video game to, put one foot in front of the other. It's dangerous.
So we're talking about Pokemon Go, and was geared more so towards the younger crowd. So what age do you think is appropriate for kids to start walking to school on their own? When do you think that they're ready to be safe in walking to school?
Well, I know one of the recommendations that the foundation has made is that children 10 and under, it's better to have them accompanied by an adult. That's what we recommend.
Okay. Now, have you personally experienced any incidents where you were close to someone who may have had a situation that didn't turn out very well in a motorist accident or situation? And if someone ends up in a situation like that, what should they do?
What kind of situation
If someone ends up in a situation where there is an accident and it's someone that's close to them, what should they do?
Well, I haven't had anything personally like that happen to me, but as far as, if an accident happens, of course you want to go to the police department, but it's the stress of this campaign is to avoid this type of situation. And really, one of the focuses of the campaign is to stay alert as a pedestrian, as a bicyclist, as a motorist, so that this type of thing doesn't happen.
Yes. Well, I'm very happy that you have not had anyone close to you experience any terrible accidents for you to have to deal with. But if you have any final words that you would like to tell us about your foundation or what you do before heading on out?
Sure. Play it safe, everybody. I realize, you know, you might not have a child in school, but we're all sharing the road. And as an individual, you're going to focus on yourself, but remember, you're not the only one sharing the road, and we all have to look out for each other. Safety first.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Kathleen Miller. Appreciate all the wonderful tips that you gave us today. Make sure you remember to wear a helmet, stop when you see a bus with the stop sign that is swinging out on the side. And also, if you have a small child that is under 10 years old, it is recommended that you travel with them. We'll be right back with Bahai's Youth Spiritual Empowerment Program.
You ready for some baseball trivia?
Let's do it.
What year produced the most no-hit games in the big leagues?
7 no-hitters in 1990.
Wow, that's right. Now a question that's not trivial. How many children will witness bullying this year? The answer, 3 out of 4.
75%?
That's right. How many of them will say something?
Kids want to help, but don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov.
Bahai's of Northern Delaware in Cecil County, Maryland has a junior spiritual empowerment program. Here to tell us about what the program is are coordinators Rachel Petersen and Shaun Gould.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Well, first, can you please tell me where this program comes from?
It actually came from the Atlantic Regional Training Institute, started it. And it was originally literacy program that they actually started somewhere else in the world. And when they started it, they found that groups that responded the best were younger adolescents or teenagers, like middle schoolers up to like 12 to 15 years old. And that they responded best when it was themes that related to their lives, and also, you know, helped them to contribute to their communities. So that's basically where it came from. And they brought it to the United States maybe about 10 years ago, once they developed training materials for animators. And animators are the sort of like mentors that lead the groups And we call them animators because they enliven the group and sort of bring out the best in each individual member, but also the group as a whole.
Okay, so the animators are mentors.
Basically,
so
yeah.
you say that they bring out the best in the group as a whole. Are the mentors teenagers or are they older adults?
They're usually, they're usually older teenagers or young adults. Really anybody can be an animator, but we find that the closer they are in age to the members of the group, the better the youth respond, because obviously, you know, there's more of a connection if they're closer in age, and usually the older youth or young adults can relate to them more like friends rather than, you know, students or, you know, in a
paternalistic way.
Thank you, you read my mind.
Well, Shaun, is the term animator specific to this youth group, or is the term animator connected to the Bahai faith?
I would say it's connected to like the goals of the group, right? I mean, one of the reasons we say animator instead of like facilitator or teacher is because it doesn't have that paternalistic, you know, overtone, right? And that the emphasis is on, you know, the powers and capacities of the junior youth themselves, right? Like they have that within themselves, right? So it's the animator's job to bring those to the surface and give them give those capacities an outlet, right? So animator, you animate those capacities.
Ah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That was my thinking.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that we were clear. So what do you mean by spiritual empowerment? What is spiritual empowerment?
Sure. So, you know, sometimes in our society we think of like spirituality as a very, very narrow thing, right? But actually, in this program, we take the stance that it's applicable in every part of our lives, right? An example I really like is like, you know, I'm sure you have a best friend, right?
Yes.
And there's when you think about them, like the reason why you're a best friend with them is there's something about them.
Yeah.
You probably can't exactly put your finger on, but there's like a sweetness or like a beauty in them that you see, right? And we would say that's a spiritual capacity. Your ability to see that, like in your friend, and pick this person. That's a spiritual capacity, right? And that's actually an example of like a spiritual capacity we want junior youth to have, right? Is the ability to perceive, okay, like who is somebody that's going to be a good friend to me, right? And versus somebody who's going to be somebody that might be a negative influence on my life, right?
So the goal is like discernment.
Yeah, in this case, right?
Okay.
But like these spiritual capacities, there's so many. There's that one. There's like your ability to serve your community. That's a spiritual capacity, right? Because, you know, there's practical things, but there's also these like spiritual attitudes that you need when you're interacting with people, with your community, to be successful.
Who sponsors this program?
So the Bahai community of the United States sponsors the program here in the United States. But for our local efforts, the Baha'is of Northern Delaware and Cecil County, Maryland, sponsor the efforts.
Yeah, and also, like as Rachel said before, the Regional Training Institute is a body where the materials that we use to become animators are generated, and also where like reflection and learning from groups all around the Mid-Atlantic states are sort of funneled and then disseminated back to individual communities, and they sponsor our efforts as well.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that the Bahai faith is international as well.
It's a world
What other
religion.
parts in the world recognize the Baha'i faith or participate in the activities that are connected to the Baha'i faith?
Pretty much everywhere. It's a world religion. And the main goal of the Baha'i faith is to unify mankind. So at one point, I don't know right now, but at one point it was the second most widespread religion in the world.
Okay.
So.
And I think it's worth saying that these junior youth groups, this junior youth spiritual empowerment program, is a really international phenomenon, right? Like it started in Colombia actually, but now in just about every country, I know there's like really dynamic programs in India, in Brazil, in some of the Pacific Islands. Like what they're doing is really incredible.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the program is not strictly for Baha'is. Actually, it started off that Baha'is were the animators, but the need for the program has become so great that now we're training or asking people to volunteer to train them to be animators in their local communities. And part of that is because if the youth can easily access the program, it's more likely to flourish. And so a lot of the youth actually, and now animators that are in the program are not Baha'is. And the material we use is not Baha'i inspired for the junior youth themselves. Which means that it's not that we don't mention the Baha'i faith and we don't mention God per se all the time or specific religions. But we do use ideas and concepts of the Baha'i faith, which is why it's Baha'i inspired.
Well, we're running low on time, so please tell us where we can find more information about your program.
Okay, well, if you want more information, you can email us at our official junior youth program email here for our area, which is youthpowerde@gmail.com.
Can you say that one more time?
Yes, youthpowerde@gmail.com. So if you email us, then we can give you more information that way.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
I do hope you come back and tell us more about what the youth are doing in the community.
We'd love to, yeah.
Thank you so much. And coming up next, the Coalition of 100 Black Women.
Shocking. Goes it road all the time. Just had a few drinks. This can't be happening.
Are we clear?
Clear. We're just buzzed. Just buzzed. You didn't tell us that, sir. You're right. This isn't happening. You'll be fine.
I feel good.
Really?
No, not really.
Buzz driving.
Clear.
Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal.
Shocking.
Being a dad can be tough.
When's the fairy princess coming?
Any minute now. But it's always worth it.
I know it's really you, Brew. I'm just pretending for the other kids.
Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
The National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Delaware chapter, is a nonprofit advocacy group that seeks to empower women of color in meeting their diverse needs. This is done through a series of programs, networking activities, partnerships with the community, corporate and government sectors. I'm joined with Delaware Chapter President Melanie Daniels and Vice President of Membership Ray Jones Avery. So tell us what the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Delaware Chapter is up to.
Thanks so much for having us.
You're very
We're
welcome.
excited because September 10th and 11th is our Empowerment Weekend. We've been now a chapter here in Delaware for over 20 years, and we're celebrating that accomplishment by having our Empowerment Weekend. It is 2 days, power-packed. It's a summit on Saturday, and then a gentleman's cook-off, which is our signature fundraiser, on Sunday. A full day, we're going to have a living room series, which is a discussion about areas that are affecting women in education, health, and economic empowerment. We also have a segment of Saturday's program that is a Legacy Award celebration where we celebrate unsung sheroes. And then also on Sunday, our Gentleman's Cook-Off, we have gentlemen all across the area, tri-state area, that bring their culinary delights to the Hercules building and put them on parade. Everyone gets to try those culinary delights and then vote on them for awards.
Now, I must admit I do like to eat, so I am quite excited about this cook-off. So can you tell me about some of the foods that we will be able to taste and experience during the Gentleman's Cook-Off?
Well, of course, the specific foods are a secret for right now. And that's what we want, is to draw in all of the attendees based upon the fact that the different food items fall into categories. There will be breakfast items because it is a brunch time frame.
I love brunch.
So we will have brunch items, just breakfast. We'll have appetizers. We'll have entrees, like you're having a full meal, and then we'll have dessert items. We also have the benefit of having 2 separate stations there during our brunch time that will be making fresh omelets, waffles, and chicken.
This just sounds great.
Oh, it's great.
I'm actually getting ready to tear up a little bit because I'm so excited and happy about all this food that's going to be available.
Well, let me say that the chefs do keep their recipes secret because it is a competition. But what you will experience and will be very memorable for you and anyone, and hopefully people throughout our community and state that join us, is you will experience a room full of men that have taken the time to donate both their talents as well as their resources. They prepare everything out of pocket to help to support a cause for African American women and girls.
So, can you tell me how long the coalition has been around and how long they've been in Delaware?
Well, the Delaware chapter is we're moving into our 21st anniversary. We're still celebrating we're about to move into our 21st anniversary. The organization nationally was founded in the early 70s in New York City. There were a small group of women that felt that African American women nationally needed to raise our voices and do it through a local, regional kind of chapter structure, or specifically to advocate for public policy change and to bring attention to everyone, causes that are important and that affect the lives and the conditions that we live in, and women of all backgrounds.
So how has the coalition raised their voices here in Delaware?
You want to take that one, Mel?
We can do it together. We've done a number of different things. Voter education is a major item for us. And of course, as you know, this electrified political season, we've had several candidates forums, both via phone as well as in person. We have one actually coming up this Thursday night at Easy on Mount Carmel at 6 o'clock, where we are going to talk to the congressional candidates. So we've done a lot of candidates forums in voter education, empowering the community so that they understand that their voice is important. We've also actually gone down and challenged some of the bills. We've done a very controversial bill, the needle exchange, which struck a lot of controversy, but we felt very strongly about it. We've also worked and partnered for several years with Beautiful Gate Outreach Center in their HIV and AIDS initiative, because of course Delaware is very high in terms of black women and girls that have contracted HIV and AIDS.
Great. Now, can you, Ray Jones Avery,
we need you to join the coalition of 100 black women.
Oh, well, we will discuss that because you guys sound like an amazing group, and I do like to serve the community, and so we can discuss that off camera. But I do want to ask you about the Empowerment Weekend because, as you know, I'm already excited about the food, but I'm also excited about everything else that's going to be happening. So can you tell me a little bit more about that weekend and how it ties into the mission of the Coalition of 100 Black Women?
Okay, well, the Empowerment Summit on Saturday is food for the mind, food for the spirit, and we will have a noted entrepreneur will be our keynote speaker, Angela Ford, and she has done remarkable things. Several multi-million-dollar businesses that were developed from very small business ventures. We will have a living room series conversation with Angela Ford. Then we will move into workshops that will be on our topical areas that are our priorities: education, health and wellness, specifically emotional and mental health, and economic empowerment. We have local experts that will be leading those conversations, and we want to hear from the community what's on everybody's minds. And then we will have our Legacy Awards presentation. We have Pearl Livingston, who is an unsung hero that will be receiving the award this year. We're very excited about Mrs. Livingston receiving the award. Generation Next, the Urban League Young Professionals will be receiving the Generation Next Award. Wow. And our Legacy Award recipient
is a secret.
It's a secret.
Are you sure?
I'm very sure.
Okay.
But we want people we'll give you some hints so that people that know and love this woman, she is a pillar in our community, so they can come and support her.
Okay.
And then we will end with a political candidates forum with candidates for city council president and county exec, and I think that's we're still trying to really bring forward the candidates for city council. But it's so many candidates, we really want to make sure that format is going to be an effective one.
So how can people get involved with various things that the coalition is doing if they are not in the coalition?
Well, we partner. We have a range of partnerships. So we partner with other organizations. People can volunteer, and we do have open membership once a year. We just inducted 20 very powerful young women and women of different ages last evening. And our next membership cycle will start up in January of 2017.
Well, thank you so much. We're running low on time.
Okay.
So I do want to invite you guys to come back to tell us a little more about what the coalition is doing in the future. We'll be right back with the State Office of Animal Welfare.
Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. And on a quiet day, you can hear her breathing. In celebration of our 20th anniversary, the Delaware chapter of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Inc. presents an action-packed empowerment weekend at the scenic Hercules Plaza, 1313 North Market Street in Wilmington, Delaware. Saturday, September 10th, My Sister's Keeper Empowerment Summit and Legacy Awards celebration will take place beginning at 8:30 to 2 p.m. This summit will convene hundreds of women and teens to dialogue in an interactive living room kind of conversation with noted entrepreneur and author Angela Ford. This will be followed by workshops and a political forum on the policy regarding the quality of life for Black women and girls. The afternoon closes with the My Sister's Keeper Awards Luncheon, which will honor unsung sheroes across generations. On Sunday, September 11th from 12 to 4, the Gentleman's Cook-Off, Cooking for a Cause, a soulful Sunday brunch, will raise funds to support the Coalition's mission, and professional and amateur chefs will tempt us with their culinary arts.
I got no balls for losing. Shocking.
Shows it road all the time. Just had a few drinks. This can't be happening.
Are we clear?
Clear.
We're just buzzed.
Just buzzed. You didn't tell us that, sir. You're right, this isn't happening. You'll be fine.
I feel good. Really?
No, not really.
Buzz driving.
Clear.
Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal.
Shocking.
Being a dad can be tough.
When's the fairy princess coming?
Any minute now. But it's always worth it.
I know it's really you, Boo. I'm just pretending for the other kids.
Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Welcome back to Window on Wilmington. We're going to talk to the Animal Welfare Office of Delaware. We're joined with Director Hetti Brown.
Hello.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Office of Animal Welfare here in Delaware?
Sure. The Office of Animal Welfare was formed about 2.5 years ago to consolidate and coordinate animal welfare programs in the state. So we run statewide programs for pet owners and their companions, such as the state's spay and neuter program that offers low-cost services for persons receiving public assistance. We regulate animal shelters, so we conduct annual inspections on shelters and investigate complaints. And we also provide a number of training and certification programs. Most recently, we launched Delaware Animal Services, which is our animal control and cruelty enforcement unit.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the Animal Control and Cruelty Unit?
Sure. Delaware Animal Services launched in September of last year and since has been adding services along the way. We recently started to provide services to City of Wilmington residents on July 1st.
Okay.
So Delaware Animal Services is a 24-hour operation providing animal control services, cruelty enforcement, and rabies control services for all residents of the state of Delaware.
Okay, so can you tell me if people should have their pets spayed or neutered, why or why not?
Absolutely. We always encourage pet owners to sterilize their animal and always vaccinate their animal. All dogs, cats, and ferrets in Delaware must have a valid rabies vaccination. And sterilization can reduce a lot of long-term medical issues, can prevent cancer in your pet, can make your pet behave better. You know, it reduces nuisance issues like urinating in the house or running off. And our animal control unit, a lot of the stray animals that are found wandering the streets are not sterilized because they have that natural instinct to go out to seek a mate. So we always encourage sterilization and other welfare services.
Now you mentioned stray animals out on the street. What should people do when they encounter stray animals? Is it a good idea to take them home? What do you do?
Well, we're always here for residents. They can call our 24-hour hotline, which is 302-255-4646. And
Can you say that one more time?
Yep. 302-255-4646. That is our 24-hour hotline. People are there to take the call, and you can make the report. Now, you know, if a dog is friendly, sometimes we do get calls where people say, I have this really friendly dog that's in my garage. Can you come and help? And we do. Of course, if someone does not know the dog and does not know if the dog has aggressive behaviors, we do not encourage residents to approach that animal.
Now, in helping people take care of animals that they encounter, what about animals that they already have? What are some tips for people to make sure that they are properly caring for their pets?
Well, in Delaware, every pet owner is required to provide basic care and nutrition to their pets. So they must feed their animal at least once a day, make sure their animal always has access to water. Also, proper shelter is required, especially for animals living outside, making sure that they not only have, for a doghouse, but also secondary shade, because a doghouse can get very, very hot in the winter or in the summer. Pet owners are also required to make sure their animals are cared for from a medical perspective. So animals must be vaccinated. If the animal has an illness or an injury, they must seek veterinary care. And this is a lot of what our officers do. They educate pet owners. Our approach and philosophy towards animal control is really a combined strategy between enforcement, which is important and a critical tool, especially when animals are being intentionally neglected or abused. But we balance that with education and providing resources to people. So many times a day our officers encounter a pet owner whose animal may be struggling. Maybe they don't have proper housing or veterinary care, and the owner may not have access to those services because they don't have transportation or they don't have funding or money to do that, or they just don't know any better. So our officers spend a lot of time educating, and we even provide services. We give away free dog houses. We give away food. There's been situations we've organized volunteers to help transport animals to a veterinary appointment because the person who owned that animal can't drive. So we see ourselves as a full service agency that's not just there for the animal, but we're there for the family as well.
Okay, well, you mentioned that people are required to meet the basic needs for animals, nutrition-wise and medically. But if someone is neglecting their animal or abusing their animal, what does that look like?
Well, if people see anything that does not seem right or look right, they should always report it to us. Our investigators are highly trained. They're law enforcement agents, so we do conduct investigations in those situations. It is illegal in Delaware to abuse your animal, hit your animal, beat your animal. It is illegal to harm that animal in any way, poisoning or failure to provide them food, nutrition, veterinary care. That's not okay. So if anybody sees something that doesn't look right, sees an animal that may be neglected or abused, maybe too thin, doesn't have proper housing, is afraid of being abused, they should report it to us, and we investigate all complaints of animal cruelty. Okay, now what number should they contact if they see an animal that is being abused? Our 24-hour hotline, 255-4646. They can also make non-emergency complaints on our website, animalservices.delaware.gov. Animalservices.delaware.gov. On there, they can find report incidents. Our state lost and found pet registry is there. Any animal we pick up as stray, we post immediately to the site to try to help them find their way home. They can also purchase dog licenses on that site. Every dog owner is required to have a dog license in Delaware, and that helps us return animals that we may find. Now, you mentioned that sometimes people can get maybe free dog houses and supplies and things that are needed to take care of the animal. Are there specific income requirements? Do people need to fill out an application? How does that work? No, usually it's when our officers go out to a reported situation and we speak to the owner. We will ask that owner, what are they struggling with? Why doesn't the dog have a dog house? And if they say they can't afford it, we do what we can to provide that as a free service. We don't check income. We don't check into their background. We trust that pet owner, and we go into every situation with the assumption that people love their pets. They consider them part of the family, but sometimes a family needs help. If the family's struggling to provide basic needs for themselves, they're probably struggling to care for their pet too, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to help them. Do you have any final thoughts for us in terms of making sure that our pets are well taken care of in the community? Well, just use us as a resource, our website, our phone number. Wilmington, unfortunately, has experienced a revolving door of animal control providers in the past, but that's all done because now it is a state-provided service in partnership with the city. So it's a government-provided service now, so people should not be fearful of reaching out to us. We're here to help.
You mentioned that when people have their dogs licensed, it's easier for you to return them to their owner. So aside from that, why is it important for people to have their dogs licensed?
Well, first of all, it's the law. And a license may only cost $10 if your pet is sterilized, $15 if not. The fine for not having a license can be $50 or more. So it's more economical, first of all. But second of all, it really is your pet's free ticket home. If we pick up a stray dog that accidentally got out, we scan it, or we look for a license on the pet. If we find a license, we deliver that pet right back to you at no cost. It's your pet's free ride home. And then also, of course, the funding that comes in through dog licensing helps to support our program so we can provide these great services to residents, like free services, like providing access to low-cost spay-neuter and things like that. So it's also valuable from that perspective.
Well, we're running out of time, but I do appreciate you coming in on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I hope you come back.
I will, absolutely.
And tell us about some more initiatives that you are working on and moving forward.
Thank you.
We'll talk about child support when Window on Wilmington continues after this.
Pretty much a good day for me would be people leaving their hands off of me. I'm always called names. Everywhere that I go, there's always someone calling me names, calling me gay. I've been choked, thrown up against a wall, punched. Nobody's ever tried to help me.
I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does. And like that, you're a job creator.
The Delaware Division of Child Support Enforcement has changed its name to the Division of Child Support Services. Here to talk about that and more is Director Ted Mermigos.
Hi, it's
welcome
nice
to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Yep.
So first, tell us about the name change and why the name change.
We are so really pleased that our Cabinet Secretary at Delaware Health and Human Social Services and the governor allowed us to change our name from the Division of Child Support Enforcement to the Division of Child Support Services. We, as an agency, really want to let the public know that we're here as public servants to serve them. And taking the word enforcement out of our division's name and putting it and substituting it with services really lets the public know that we want to help and really want to help them out.
How many children receive support in the state of Delaware?
Well, currently our caseload statewide is about 82,000 cases. 60% of those cases are in Newcastle County and obviously the city of Wilmington. We like to believe that a majority of the cases receive child support, but there is a lot of work that we have to do to make sure that non-custodial parents meet their child support obligations.
What kind of work has to be done to make sure that non-custodial parents are meeting the needs of their children? But first, I want to make sure before you answer that question that we clarify what custodial means versus non-custodial.
Sure. Custodial parents are the individuals who have primary responsibility for caring for their child. The non-custodial parent is the individual who that may have visitation and may have a custody agreement with the custodial parent, but is the one who is responsible for paying child support and does not have the primary responsibility for that individual's care and responsibility for that. So the non-custodial parent, we work with the family court in the state of Delaware to create child support orders. And once those orders are established and there's a determined amount that the person is going to pay for child support each month, our staff will make sure that the obligations are being satisfied. But if they're not, there are some tools that we use to make sure that obligations are being paid. For instance, we have a license suspension program. And if someone has a driver's license or a professional license and are not meeting their child support obligation, we can go ahead and notify them that we will be suspending their license unless they get in compliance. Additionally, we have the capability of intercepting state and federal tax refunds to pay off child support arrears that have accrued over time. One of the more important programs that we have at Child Support is our Voluntary Acknowledgement of Paternity program. In order to have a court order established in the state, the very first step is to make sure that paternity for all of the children within that case is established, so that the biological mother and biological father are both identified. And just to kind of touch base on the genetic testing portion, there's voluntary acknowledgements of paternity, which allows both parents to basically sign off on a notarized document that they are the biological parents of the child. But if there is any kind of a doubt that the non-custodial parent believes that they are or are not the biological parent, we can go ahead and do genetic testing to basically confirm that this is the biological mother and that this is the biological father of that child.
Okay, so thank you so much for
I know that was a
clarifying
lot
those
of
terms.
information.
No, it was
Yeah.
good information. We just wanted to make sure that we were clear on what those terms meant.
Yeah.
So to answer the second portion of the question, what kind of work needs to be done to make sure that the non-custodial parent is meeting the needs of the child?
Yeah. One of the things that we rely heavily on is employers. If there's a child support obligation in place, we will go ahead and issue a wage withholding to an employer if that non-custodial parent is working. We receive about 70% of our child support payments through the wage withholding process. In addition to wage withholdings, individuals can make payments on their own, and we always encourage non-custodial parents to try and make those payments on their own if they see that an employer is not making a deduction to their income.
So what does it take for families to become clients of your services?
Right. If a custodial parent, there's a couple ways to make that happen. First is if a custodial parent is a client of the Division of Social Services, if they receive Medicaid or TANF benefits, we receive an automatic referral from the Division of Social Services to go ahead and create a case and start working that case for that custodial parent. The second way is a custodial parent can come into our office and complete a child support application. And they have to provide us with some additional information, such as Social Security cards and birth certificates. And if there's an existing court order already in place, they can provide us with that documentation. And we would go ahead and create a case and start working that case on behalf of that custodial parent.
So what is the establishment process?
Well, the establishment process, there's several steps that lead up to it. The first I've already mentioned is the determining who the biological parents are. The second piece of that is to locate. We have to locate, make sure we locate the non-custodial parent, the correct individual who the custodial parent is indicating is the non-custodial parent. And then we will work with the Department of Justice and the family court to create a child support order by filing a new support petition with the family court. Once the petition is brought into family court, there's always, the first process is really to try and mediate a resolution between the parties. Hopefully the parties can come in and the family court uses the child support calculation to determine what the obligations are going to be. And then if hopefully through the mediation process they can come to that agreement. Not all parties can mediate the agreement to pay child support. And then it gets referred to a family court commissioner who will preside over the case and determine what the obligation is going to be.
Okay, you talked about mediation.
Yes.
Talk to me about that process alone.
Well, and one of the distinctions we always have to make and make sure people understand is the Division of Child Support Services and the family court were two separate entities. So we will work with the family court by filing petitions, and the family court really is involved in determining what the obligations are going to be, and they assist in obviously enforcing the court orders once they're established. But mediation, I mean, I can certainly talk about mediation, and we prefer that the parties come together and really on behalf of the children try to mediate an obligation and work out the difficulties in order to really benefit the child both financially and to make sure that medical coverage is available if it's available at a reasonable cost through an employer. But the parties come together at mediation and they take a look at income and they take a look at other factors that will be used in that child support calculation. And the family court mediators are very good about trying to get them to resolve at the mediation process to determine what that obligation is going to be.
So I understand that you have a fatherhood program.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, we are very, very happy to get to have this fatherhood program finally up and running. It's been a years-long work to get to this stage. We are working with First State Community Action Agency statewide with referring non-custodial parents who are underemployed or are unemployed to help them find skills, whether it be educational skills or training skills, to help them find long-term sustainable employment so that they can not only be self-sufficient, have enough income to support themselves, but in the end to pay their child support obligations. So we are working closely with First State Community Action Agency. We're happy to be a part of that, working with them in a cohesive manner to refer non-custodial parents who need help in trying to find better jobs and better employment opportunities.
Okay, well, I know that you have a Delaware Fatherhood orientation coming up in Dover soon, but in order for people to be able to take advantage of it, they need to know where to find the information and contact you. So how can they contact you on the phone, and how can they find your website?
Right. Well, and we have a Facebook page. We have a website. It's I always refer people to de.gov and then look for the Division of Child Support Services under Health and Social Services. There's information regarding all of our services on our website, but the newest item is that Delaware Fatherhood Program. They can certainly contact our office at 302-577-7171 and talk to a child support worker about the fatherhood program.
We are running out of time, but I do appreciate you coming in on the show. On behalf of Wilmington City Council, thank you for joining us today. I'm Cherish McMillan, and I'll see you next time.